Hello and welcome to the Beyond podcast. We are talking about the notorious Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. I am the Dark Lord of the Sith, Mediocrity 4.
And Misa Jar Jar Binks. Misa Jake. Or Dude, what the heck?
Misa, your humble servant.
And I am not a space station. I am Robert.
That's actually better than
It's
mine.
no small moon.
Damn it. Yours was funnier than mine.
Not
Shit.
a moon. I am not a space.
That robot chicken bit. That's no small moon. That's your mother.
Oh!
I really wish Sock were on these podcasts just for his intros.
Well, Sock doesn't know anything about Star Wars.
I know, that's true. If he did, though.
That's why we can't actually be best friends.
Aw.
That's so weird. How does he know nothing about Star... whatever, we're not going to get on that subject right now.
Yeah.
I don't know. But he knows all the Monster Girl animes.
Yes, he does. He knows that.
Yeah. Yeah. We're going to have to get him on here if we do a podcast for those.
Yeah. So we're talking about the Phantom Menace, which is...
I'd say collectively it's the most hated.
It gets the most hate, and I think a lot of that, as we'll get more into detail, I think a lot of that has to do with the fact the flaws are so easy, like they were so easy to fix. They're so easy to fix. It's a lot like Ruby in that regard, where like even on its best days, like it's got flaws
a
and
lot of little things,
and they're really easy to spot. Like you're not some avant-garde CinemaSins dude if you're spotting these flaws. It just means you're paying attention.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, even CinemaSins doesn't claim to be avant-garde, but yeah.
Well, I mean, their whole joke is that no movie is without sin.
Yeah, which is true, but yeah, and
so
it's definitely the movie with the most like glaringly obvious flaws, but at the same time, I do think, well, we'll talk about it. I think it's a little better than we sometimes give it credit.
Yeah, and I have a couple theories why.
Yeah.
So, when last we left, it was 1983. Return of the Jedi had just come out. Massive success.
Aside from the Ewoks, it was dope.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, Star Wars after that kind of hit this weird spot. Where there wasn't a whole lot Star Wars coming out, but it also never really went away.
Yeah. Exactly.
There's always constantly games and comics and books, especially the books. And I'm gonna actually save. I'm actually going to save the book discussion for Attack of the Clones because I think the whole expanded universe thing flowed a lot more into what ended up going wrong with Attack of the Clones rather than Phantom Menace. Which is actually one of Phantom Menace's strengths, is because it's out there. It's way different than any other Star Wars movie, and I think that's why a lot of people still seem to like it. Like I know, unusual.
Like
I know,
at least, but...
I know. Unusual Suspect, who's a great YouTuber. His voice gets kind of grating because he's got this like weird British lisp, but he's a fantastic editor. But he gave a really good argument of Phantom Menace actually being the best of the prequels.
I mean, as far as the prequels, well, I wouldn't say it's my favorite to watch because I don't love watching any of the prequels.
Yeah.
But it is the one that I hate the least. I will say that. Like, okay, I'll put it this way. So when we started this whole thing, like we knew we were going to do these Star Wars ones, right? And I was really excited for that. I mean, this was, besides the Avatar podcast, which that was only one podcast, although I really wish we could have done one podcast for each book. But anyway, I was really excited to do this whole podcast thing into the Star Wars movie, which, by the way, I'm even more hyped for the new movie, because they apparently think Rian Johnson's so good that they put him in charge of an entire new trilogy.
Yeah.
So That better mean that this movie specifically is really good, because that has to have meant that he knocked it out of the park. And he's got a decent track record, so I could see that.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Same.
so I'm even more hyped now. But so I was really hyped for this thing, and so when I watched episode 4, and I was like, oh man, that's even better than I remember. And I watched episode 5, I was like, okay, I can see this is where there's some of the issues of like the whole Luke and Vader thing that could have been done better, but it's still really good. And episode 6 was as good as it ever was. And I watched episode 1. Like I watched 5, 6, and 1 in like a span of 2 or 3 days, like weeks ago. And then I was like, so I watched episode 1. I was like, it's really not as bad as people say it is. Like, I don't hate this movie at all. Like, it's not great, but I don't hate it. There's like nothing I truly hate about this movie. And then I'm like, but shit, I gotta watch episodes 2 and 3 now. Yeah. And I still haven't watched episodes 2 and 3.
Yeah,
those are the ones.
I definitely need to at least rewatch episode 2.
I don't want to watch those movies. That's the difference between episode 1 and episodes 2 and 3, where it's like I don't want to watch those movies. I'm going to, and maybe I'll come out of them saying I don't hate them as much as I used to, but I'm going into them like this is the first of all of the other ones. Episode 1 I was fine with watching. I enjoyed it. It's an enjoyable movie by itself. Even if there's problems with it, but 2 and 3, I do not want to watch them.
I think it's kind of hitting.
I'm not looking forward to 2.
Yeah, I think Phantom Menace kind of hits that Adam West Batman thing where it was like I remember this being really popular when it first came out when I was a kid, and then it didn't take long to kind of fall out of public conscious and become like the most hated Star Wars movie. George Lucas killed my childhood.
Yeah,
but then over the course of like I think it was actually like right after Red Letter Media did his review of it, where his 90-minute semester worth of film school review of Phantom Menace, that people were actually started being like, you know what, he's right, but this is kind of enduring because a lot of this I didn't notice, and anyone can spot nitpicks if they look hard enough. The true virtue of a movie is how well they hide those nitpicks. And then I think a lot of it
forget about the nitpicks. So
I think a lot of it has to do with what Disney has done with Star Wars, which we'll get to that. But I think because a lot of the Disney stuff, and this is not just with Rogue One and Force Awakens, this is also with all their comics and books that they've been doing. They've just been hitting like on repeat, just doing the same thing over and over again. I think a lot of people kind of miss just how ballsy this movie was. This is the most ambitious Star Wars movie since the original.
It is. I agree with that. And there are some parts that they do get right. And I mean, I don't know what order we want to go in, but I mean, there's definitely a few specific topics I want to cover. I mean, some of the major flaws, at least for me, include midichlorians. That was definitely not a great idea.
That was him over-explaining a fantasy to make it more sci-fi.
And then I'd say the biggest flaw that I have, the biggest complaint I have with this film is that it does this weird thing where, one of the things that made made A New Hope, or original Star Wars, whatever the fuck you want to call it, so great was that as ambitious as it was, they made it work because it was fairly simple. It was just straightforward. There were not that many locations. Even the effects, like, they did them as simply as they could for how ambitious they were. All those sort of things. The storyline is fairly simple. And if you notice, as the films go on, in my opinion, of the first 3, they do get slightly worse, even though they're not like abnormal sequels where they get way worse. They're still great movies. But as they get more complicated, they do technically get a little bit less, I don't want to say less compelling, but they never match the first film, right? But they still do a good job because everything is still focused around the same thing. In this film, it feels like there's too much going on. They're trying to do too many things at the same time. And all of those things aren't actually as connected as they are trying to make them be. And even worse than that, the original Star Wars plotline for the first 3 is very straightforward. This one, and it always feels very important and it matters. This one's weird because at the time, like after I finished the movie, even like, well, when I first watched it, it felt important. But then a few years later, I watched the film again, and I'm like, why is this important? Like, and then you watch the second and third film, and you're like, wow, this really, episode 1 really feels like it doesn't matter. And then you watch, then it's gotten to the point where now they have the, what I forgot what they call it, but there's that specific order to watch Star Wars, which is
the machete order.
Machete order 4, 5, 2, 3, 6, where they cut episode 1 out entirely. And I actually understand why that order exists, because in my of the prequels, episode 1 is still my favorite. I will defend that. Even I'm not saying it's great, but it is my favorite individual movie to watch of the first 3. But I understand why that order exists, because episode 1 feels so unimportant after you watch everything else. And they sort of try to connect episode 1 actually in the Clone Wars TV series, and they do a decent job of retconning the importance of episode 1 through a few things in that TV show, which again, no idea why people hate Dave Filoni when he's able to almost make episode 1 a better movie retroactively. Like, big props to Dave Filoni and his team for being able to do that, honestly. But really, for the most part, I know people say, like, anybody will defend it, will say, well, episode 1 is like the thing that started, but it doesn't feel like it. It really does feel like it's completely unnecessary. And it's like, it's such a pointless conflict. And they even kind of pointed out during the movie, I noticed this time around. It's like, they were kind of pointing out that it's really not a very big deal. Like, that seems like Palpatine kind of points out. It's like, you don't really expect anybody to be able to help you, Padme. Like,
there's two really, really important things that had to happen in this movie, and they could have done that anywhere. Obi-Wan meeting Anakin, and Senator Palpatine becoming Supreme Chancellor Palpatine.
Yeah.
Which that part, the actual voting happens off screen.
I know. Yeah. They pull an Oscar in Ruby.
Yeah.
It wasn't that bad, because at least in this we got that scene where Senator Palpatine's like whispering into Padme's ear, like,
we see how Padme see Padme make the decision.
Can we point out the weird thing that one of the two people that were nominated next to Palpatine, one of them was Ailey Team of Malastare, and the other one was Bail Antilles of Alderaan, who has no relation to Bail Organa and no relation to Wedge Antilles, apparently.
Yeah, that was weird.
Why did they combine those two names? That is so dumb and annoying. I hate that. I mean, some
that was just totally arbitrary name that they were just like.
Can correct me?
Antilles is like the Alderanian version of Smith.
Yeah.
But is Wedge from Alderaan?
I believe so.
Know.
I thought he wasn't, actually.
I know there was another Antilles, Ramus Antilles or whatever, the actual captain of the Tantive 4 that got totally choked out by Vader.
He's from Corellia. He's from Corellia. He's from the planet that manufactures a lot of starfighters. So he's not even from all. That's my point. So why they gave him Bail Organa's first name and Wedge Antilles' last name, yet he has I'm just saying, like, why would they
thought into this than they did?
But it's confusing.
The frustrating thing about being a critic, though, is when you feel like you put more thought into something than the writers.
Now you know how I feel on a weekly basis when Ruby's starting.
This is how we all feel. Yeah.
There's got to be other Star Wars fans that I'm not the only person who's thought of that, because I'm not even the biggest Star Wars nerd.
I did not know that.
And there's got to be people. Please, Star Wars nerds, in the comments, back me up here that I'm not the only one to think of both of those. Come on. That's just a dumb oversight that they could have fixed. Come on, guys.
I mean, any of them are better alternative to General Zod.
Okay, yeah, true, but
because it's the same actor, Terrence Stamp, plays Chancellor Valorum, that played General Zod in the old Superman movies.
Oh, did not even know that. That's interesting. All right, so what order do we want to conquer everything?
I think let's start big. Death. Thy name is hubris.
Yeah.
George Lucas had way too much control over this movie that he didn't even know what to do with it.
And that shows in the. I think for me one of the best examples of that is Jar Jar. And it's not just in this movie because
honestly, that feels like the thing he had the least. That feels like something Fox would have imposed on him.
No,
I don't know.
No,
I don't think. I don't think it is, but that's how it felt.
It's not because of Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the TV series. And I remember specifically there were interviews where, because George Lucas still had some say in that show, and I remember reading or watching interviews with Dave Filoni, and Dave literally just said, like, I tried to get him to not put Jar Jar in this show, but he insisted still to put Jar Jar in the show, because even to that day, he still thought Jar Jar was funny. So that's why Jar Jar is the perfect example to me. Because actually, here's the funny thing about it, and I love Star Wars: The Clone Wars, the TV show. It's the best. It makes the prequel so much better retroactively. It's one of the best things Star Wars has done since 1999. So actually, since 1983, it's one of the best things they've done. It's incredible. But the thing is, Jar Jar's actually more annoying in those episodes that he's in than he is in episode 1. To be perfectly fair to Jar Jar.
Yeah.
As much as Jar Jar is annoying, after watching episode 1 and after having just recently watched episodes 4, 5, and 6, I gotta tell you, he's not any more annoying than C-3PO. I honestly believe that. He is not any more annoying than C-3PO. Here's the fact of the matter is that Jar Jar is made worse to the reason why Jar Jar is so hateable is because for people that are original trilogy apologists, it's just something that's really easy to make fun of in an already not as good movie as the original.
Yeah,
right?
And I think as far as him and Clone Wars goes,
and for young people, Jar Jar is extra annoying because he's even more annoying in Clone Wars. Which, if you're a millennial, you'll probably which means you don't hate the prequels as much. You've watched Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and he's way more annoying. Way more insufferable in that.
I think that might be one of those like Dana Carvey things. Dana Carvey famously talked about his famous George Bush impersonation. How it started off like really accurate to what George H.W. Bush was like in circa 1992. But by like 1996, when Dana Carvey was like on his way out of SNL, it had become an impersonation of his impersonation.
Yeah.
I think Jar Jar might be the same way, where like George Lucas had this idea for Jar Jar and he kind of kept with it, but then you get to Clone Wars and it's different writers and they're doing their impression of George Lucas's Jar Jar.
Yeah.
But I mean, I will say at the end of the day, at least in this film, I don't like people overly criticize Jar Jar because, like I said, C-3PO is fucking insufferable in the original, 6? Especially in episode 6. And I love that movie, but man, he's pretty damn annoying in episode 5 too. Like the whole thing where they had him blow up and then Chewie's got to carry him and shit like that. Like that's completely pointless. And he's like, oh, I can't. Shut up. Just shut up. Like that to me is every bit as annoying as Jar Jar is in episode 1. And also, C-3PO is annoying in this movie too, to be perfectly honest.
And pointless.
He's annoying as shit.
He's just there so that Anthony Daniels can say he's been in every Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
Pretty much,
So that, I mean, and also to continue that, C-3PO is insufferable in the Star Wars, the Clone Wars TV show also. So, I mean, I don't think Jar Jar is that big of a deal, and he didn't really change. He didn't make the film that he's not one of the main problems. Okay, if everything else was fixed and Jar Jar was in the movie and is just exactly the same and everything else was fixed, I didn't think it'd be like still a favorite movie then. You know what I mean? He wouldn't bring the film down, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah.
Because C-3PO didn't bring the original trilogy down, even though he was super annoying. I think hopefully that makes sense. You don't have to agree with me, but I think that.
Yeah. I just know that it's definitely something that Fox would not have called him out on.
No.
And that'll bring me to my next point, but Robert can go ahead.
Just the fact of the matter that George Lucas is not funny.
Yeah, and I do agree that like this was And I think, and this was a problem with like the entire prequel trilogy, just George Lucas kind of spreading himself too thin, not recognizing that there are certain things he's just not good at and not being willing to admit that. Like you said, hubris and stuff like that. And yeah, ultimately it kind of ruined his legacy, him trying to do too much. He kind of hoisted himself on his own petard there. So it's a real shame because, well, yeah, and it's kind of a shame, but yeah, ultimately this is, I don't know.
I think the thing is that,
but yeah, so I do think that's a big part of the issue here is just George Lucas trying to do too much himself, not delegating enough.
Yeah, and when you see, like, it's funny. I mean, and it's it's even worse for his legacy in the fact that since other people have started creating Star Wars canon franchises, they've done a way better job than Lucas did. Besides on the original trilogy, so Star Wars: The Clone Wars TV show, there's some bad episodes of that show for sure. Like any episode with Anakin and Padme relationship drama is like, why does that fucking exist? I don't care. But there's some really amazing storylines in some incredible universe building and lore building and character moments. I mean, that show kind of saves Anakin's, like, that is what Anakin was supposed to be in the movies. Is how much more subtle his change over time is in that film. That show is incredible. So that is amazing. Rebels has been very solid, and actually this latest season has been the best yet. It's been the most focused, so that's been very good. Rogue One, I know, well, it's not perfect, but it's better than any of the prequel movies. And so was Episode 7, even though Episode 7 was just Episode 4 with new graphics and older Han Solo.
Which I think that actually like really worked in its favor. Like as we said, as we said at the outset, like this was.
When we get to it, that it worked, but yeah.
Like this was so different from any other Star Wars thing, and then it kind of gradually got back to there. Like Attack of the Clones was a little bit more focused and more Star Wars-ish. Revenge of the Sith was even more so. Almost like one-for-one structure-wise of Return of the Jedi. And then you get The Force Awakens, which is basically just A New Hope.
Yeah.
But the point is that, like, Lucas looks worse in comparison now that other people are doing a better job with his IP than he did, basically. It's like everybody's showing him up. And all of those are better than what he did directing the prequels. All of them. Yeah. Also, his casting decisions were garbage. Besides Ewan McGregor, can we talk about that?
Yeah,
there is like, I mean, it's not. The funny thing is, I think the casting is even worse. The funny thing is the episodes 2 and 3. Episode 3 is probably the best of the 3 technically as a film, but man, that's where the casting choices really hurt the film the most. I think, and his bad and his garbage dialogue writing. He really can't fucking write dialogue to save his life. But I guess another person I want to, speaking of casting, one person I also want to slightly defend is Jake Lloyd. And not just because his name is also Jake, but
he was a little kid. Of course his acting wasn't going to be great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As my RWBY example, Kuroyori was still one of the best episodes of RWBY ever, despite the fact that the guy who played young Ren was garbage. And he was actually garbage. Jake Lloyd wasn't great, but that kid playing Ren was really terrible. And that was still one of the best episodes of RWBY ever, right? Yeah. And so Jake Lloyd is not what made this movie bad. Okay? There's a lot of lines, again, like same thing with to defend I'll be defending Hayden Christensen a little bit in the next two but Nostalgia Critic makes a good point in his Star Wars Episode 1 review, or Star Wars prequels review, is that nobody's gonna make these lines sound good.
Yeah,
that all the best best
nobody
lines,
can make now this is pod racing sound good.
Yeah, that's so stupid. Who is gonna make that sound good? One of the best examples is the fact that Samuel L. Jackson was terrible in these films, and he's incredible. He's an incredibly good actor. You watch him in a Quentin Tarantino film, Sam Jackson's incredible. He plays the most his portrayal of the racist plantation servant in Django Unchained That is an incredibly powerful performance that sparked controversy just for existing. It was that good. Like, he was so convincing. It was incredible, right? And he's terrible in these films. And I can't say it's because he's him, because he's a great actor. But he's not good in these films. I can't blame him. It's got to be... It's the two-pronged George Lucas combo of terribleness. His bad dialogue being directed badly by him. Yeah. Like, how are you going to tell the guy who wrote shitty dialogue, who's directing the film, nah, dude, this isn't going to work? Like, the best lines of Star Wars, all of the actual best lines, are ad-libs by Harrison Ford. The only guy who can make George Lucas dialogue sound good, because it's not actually George Lucas dialogue, it's Harrison Ford dialogue. But I just don't...
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about Fox and kind of where they were at with this.
Okay, because I don't know about that, so that'll be interesting.
So this was the 90s, and Fox was really looking for a cash cow. Because there's this new thing called CGI. That was all the rave. And Fox didn't have a blockbuster series.
Like Toy Story.
As that started, and so a lot of this movie was them getting back a hold of George Lucas, who had always intended to make a prequel trilogy, and being like, hey, let's do this.
Yeah.
And giving him free reign to make movie.
Which, to be fair, George Lucas had basically done that. We talked about with episode 4, that George Lucas, had to be extremely innovative to make that movie work. So, to be fair, thinking, like, it doesn't seem super far off to think, hey, we got new technology to work with. Let's put George on that. Like, he's made it work before. So, yeah, it's just, I don't know. It doesn't seem like too much of a leap to assume that he could make this work too.
Maybe. And that's what I like about this movie, is that it still pushed the film medium as a whole forward.
Yeah.
So many people who hate on this movie like 300. 300 is way worse and way more egregious.
Oh yeah, it's a way better movie than 300. Yeah. And I actually have read about the actual, Battle of Thermopylae and all that stuff.
No.
Yeah. And honestly, and honestly, even for the time, like, there were very rarely any moments where we talked about the kind of moments of suspension of disbelief and stuff like that with episode 5, with some of the stop motion animation and stuff like that. Like, the particular one that I think about is the Tauntaun falling over and stuff like that.
Ooh, yeah, like, that was bad.
That was a moment that kind of pulled you out of it. There were really I can't think of any major moments in this except for, and this is actually this is actually an issue with the special edition that I'll talk about later. But there were really no moments that, like, I felt pulled me, like, where the CGI pulled me out of the movie and made me feel like, oh wow, this looks really fake and stuff like that. I don't recall any particular moments like that.
Well, this is, in fairness... Oh, sorry, you're still going.
Well, yeah, the only moment where I did was in the extended editions, where they went with CGI Yoda instead of the puppet Yoda, just because the way his lips flapped did not seem to match up with the way he was talking. And so, like, that was really the only time where I was all like, this feels fake. But yeah.
Otherwise, yeah. No, I agree. I think if there's something they do well, the technical aspects of this film were done very well. You can't.
Yeah, it doesn't hold up. It doesn't hold up that well, but it holds up a lot better than other movies that came out in 1999.
Yeah, I'd say the only ones that I think I'd say that the Lord of the Rings movies still look,
which was 2001 and very little CGI.
And very little CGI. That's the difference. So if you're talking about like an epic film series,
you could only compare it to like The Matrix.
Yeah.
Which came out that same year.
And I would actually, personally, I think this looks better than The Matrix. I think this holds up better not as a film. I don't like them. I guess maybe it's a personal preference thing. I like The Matrix as a film, at least the original one. I don't dig the effects in The Matrix as much, personally. But that's just a personal opinion. I mean, I'm not gonna like argue
I'd have
that.
to watch The Matrix again to make a call on that.
It has been a longer time since I watched The Matrix. I will say that as well. But I would say overall, at least
I remember
in my
Matrix
opinion,
2 looked bad. The second Matrix movie looked pretty bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that's what
I
I'm
remember
thinking.
The second Matrix looks pretty bad. I don't know.
Maybe that's what I'm getting confused with. Maybe I'm thinking of that. But I mean, at least the Star Wars movies got better as they went on CGI wise, I would say. But I would say this did not look bad. I still think, honestly, after rewatching it, I think it actually does hold up pretty decently well, to be perfectly honest. It certainly holds up better. It holds up better than episode 5 does. I'm not sure. Episode 4 is still like really impressive that they were able to do as much as they did. 5, I think they tried a little too hard in a couple places with the CGI and it doesn't hold up as well. This one, I actually think it holds up pretty decently well. Specifically things like the pod racing scene. The pod racing scene is still fantastic. Like I know it's completely unnecessary to have it, but at least it looks dope. Like I still enjoy that scene. Like it's still cool. Like they made it entertaining for what it was. Like I understand the issue that it shouldn't have been there in the first place, but if you're gonna make that argument, like this movie, like the whole point, like this whole movie was kind of pointless. But it still looked good. Like the pod racing scene looked awesome, and I love that added lore to Star Wars of pod racing. I think I dig that. I'm not gonna lie. The Star Wars pod racing game, awesome. Star Wars Episode 1 Racer. That game was amazing. And that game like that made this movie a little bit more redeemed. That game was really good. It was so much fun.
Yeah.
So I guess we can actually like get into the plot now.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah.
I'd say this is the part that's the weakest, I think.
Yeah.
Which is not a good thing when the plot's the weakest part of a film.
Yeah.
I'm actually going to pull up on my phone right now the Wikipedia article for Phantom Menace. We're going to play a little game here.
Okay. All right. What is this game? To those watching, we don't know what this game is. Robert and I don't, at least.
It's not really a game. It's just I'm literally just going to
read the plot I'm assuming
synopsis.
It's a joke.
You're just being
I'm
coy.
assuming it's some... Yeah.
Here it is. The Trade Federation upsets order in the Galactic Republic by blockading the planet Naboo in preparation for a full-scale invasion. The Republic's leader, Supreme Chancellor Valorum, dispatches Jedi Master Qui-Gon Jinn and his apprentice Obi-Wan Kenobi to negotiate with Federation Viceroy Nute Gunray. Darth Sidious, a Sith Lord, and the Trade Federation's secret advisor, orders the Viceroy to kill the Jedi and invade Naboo with an army of battle droids. The Jedi escape and flee to Naboo. During the invasion, Qui-Gon saves a Gungan outcast Jar Jar Binks from being run over and killed by a droid transport. Indebted to Qui-Gon, Jar Jar leads the Jedi to an underwater Gungan city. The Jedi unsuccessfully try to persuade the Gungan leader, Boss Nass, into helping the people of Naboo, that they are able to obtain transportation to Theed, the capital city on the surface. They rescue Queen Amidala, the ruler of the Naboo people, and escape the planet on her royal starship en route to the Republic capital, planet of Coruscant. That's Act 1. Amidala's ship is damaged as they pass the Federation blockade and becomes unable to use its hyperdrive, landing for repairs on the desert planet Tatooine. Qui-Gon, Jar Jar, astromech droid R2-D2, and Amidala, in disguise as one of her handmaidens, visits the settlement of Mos Espa to purchase new parts at a junk shop. They meet the shop's owner, Watto, and his 9-year-old slave, Anakin Skywalker, who is a gifted pilot and engineer, and has created a protocol droid called C-3PO. Qui-Gon senses a strong presence of the Force within Anakin and is convinced that he is the chosen one of Jedi prophecy, who will bring balance to the Force. Qui-Gon wagers Anakin's freedom with Watto in a pod race, which Anakin wins. Anakin joins the group to be trained as a Jedi, leaving his mother, Shmi, behind en route to their starship. Qui-Gon encounters Darth Maul, Darth Sidious's apprentice, who was sent to capture Amidala. A duel ensues, but Qui-Gon quickly disengages and escapes on board the starship. Now, doesn't this sound awesome so far? Like, it sounds like the makings of an awesome movie. I'm not gonna... yeah, I guess I'm like halfway there.
You gonna read the whole thing, dude?
If you guys want.
Go for it.
Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan escort Amidala to Coruscant so that she can plead her people's case to Chancellor Valorum and the Galactic Senate. Qui-Gon asks the Jedi Council for permission to train Anakin as a Jedi, but the Council refuses after he is interviewed by Yoda and becomes concerned that Anakin is vulnerable to the dark side. Undaunted, Qui-Gon vows to train Anakin himself. Meanwhile, Naboo Senator Palpatine persuades Amidala to make a vote of no confidence in Valorum to elect a more capable Chancellor to resolve the crisis on Naboo. Though she is successful in pushing for the vote, Amidala grows frustrated with the corruption of the Senate and decides to return to Naboo. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan are ordered by the Jedi Council to accompany the Queen of Naboo, as well as to confirm the return of the Sith, whom they believe to be extinct. On Naboo, Padme reveals herself to the Gungans as Queen Amidala and persuades them into an alliance against the Trade Federation. Jar Jar leads his people in a battle against the droid army, while Padme leads the hunt for Viceroy Gunray and Theed. During a battle in a starship hangar to free Naboo pilots, Anakin takes shelter in a vacant starfighter and inadvertently triggers its autopilot, joining the battle against the Federation droid control ship in space. Anakin blunders into the hangar of the droid control ship and destroys the ship from within before escaping, deactivating the droid army. Meanwhile, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan battle Darth Maul, who mortally wounds Qui-Gon before being bisected by Obi-Wan. As he dies, Qui-Gon requests Obi-Wan to train Anakin. Subsequently, Palpatine is elected as the new Supreme Chancellor, and Gunray is arrested. The Jedi Council promotes Obi-Wan to the rank of Jedi Knight, and reluctantly accepts Anakin as Obi-Wan's apprentice. Padme presents a gift of appreciation and friendship to the Gungans at a festive ceremony.
Okay, can I,
Scene.
especially after reading that, can I give that plot line the biggest insult I possibly could?
Go for it.
Sure.
You know what it reminds me of?
Oh boy.
Volume 2 of Ruby. That's honestly what it makes me think of. A bunch of random shit happens that's supposed to be important, but then later it's revealed that it really didn't matter at all. And it could have been done, and it could have been added into like one or two episodes worth of the next volume or movie. That's what I get out of this. There's so much coincidental bullshit that happens in this film, and
it's like, how
that's
did
everybody's
George
biggest
Lucas
complaint.
Get this past anyone? Oh my gosh, that is just
because he's George Lucas, the creator of Star Wars.
Yeah, pretty much. They're like, oh, it's George Lucas. He can make anything sound awesome. Oh, geez, yeah. This,
I think one of the biggest one of the biggest example for me, one of the biggest examples of why this movie is not very good, and the original trilogy is very good, is that so much of this is happening by chance, and that's why it feels so random and weird in this film. Whereas, Han Solo is my example. So how they find Han Solo versus how they get involved with Anakin is so completely different, because how they get involved with Han Solo is, first of all, as we know retroactively technically, but as we could have assumed even in the original film, Obi-Wan is there because of Luke, right? That's not random. It's not Anakin, or not Anakin, sorry, Luke. He runs into Obi-Wan not completely by chance. He would have run into him eventually anyway, because even in that film, it's very obvious that Obi-Wan was there because of Luke, right? So that's not random at all. And how they run into Han, yes, it's technically random, but it's because they're doing something important. And they form a good relationship with him, and he makes the choice to come back and continue to be part of the film, right? In this film, why it's even those two Jedi in particular that got sent to a random blockade because of some random trade embargo thing against a pointless planet, that's where that's already random as shit. Whereas in New Hope, it's very obvious that Luke is supposed to be the main character from the beginning. Obi-Wan's supposed to be important from the beginning. In this case, it's not. You feel like you're there randomly, and why is this important? Jar Jar is picked up randomly. The Queen, why does she, one of the biggest things, why does she go back to Naboo just because she's frustrated with the Senate? that doesn't make it still does like why did she go back? I need to be with my people so I can be captured. Like dumb and like how they run into Anakin is so fucking random. Like the point is like Han Solo is not as random because his character could have been any person, if that makes sense. Like he just happened to be the guy that was there. Whereas Anakin feels more random because he is actually the chosen one. So it feels so much more forced. His random encounter is so much more forced, I guess.
And they try to make it, and they try to play that all off with the will of the Force. It's like, not buying it.
But they never really explained like the will of the Force previously. The Force was not that way in the original trilogy. So
it's all and that's also my frustration with like, or I don't know, with a lot of things with this movie. It feels like a lot of characters just kind of accidentally their way through a lot of things. The big one that I'm thinking about right now is Luke destroying like the Trade Federation ship Anakin. Destroying the Trade Federation ship. He accidentally activates the autopilot, accidentally gets shot, accidentally ends up in the hangar, accidentally blows up the main reactor. It's like, ugh.
Yeah, see, none of even the worst part of the Star Wars original trilogy, by most people's standards, is the Ewoks, right?
Yeah.
But even then, it's random that they met a group, but once they met a group of native people, they formed, like, you can infer that they had a battle plan. It's not random that, like, oh, look, Ewoks showed up, and now we can fight the Empire. And that's not what happened. It doesn't feel random. Yes, the Ewoks feel overly cutesy and slightly forced in that way, but as we said, just 15 minutes ago with our other podcast, if they had just used Wookiees instead, it would have been completely forgiven. So they're not random. Whereas here, like you said, Anakin flying in there just feels it's random. It's everything happens by chance, and that makes it so much less compelling than it is in the other films. Everything just happens like out of sheer luck and bullshit.
Yeah, especially because Anakin's supposed to be like, or they're trying to make Anakin look all like he's extremely powerful with the Force. And again, that's another thing I like about what the pod races do. But like that battle there, that I don't count any of that as being due to the Force. I count that as just sheer dumb luck. Emphasis on dumb.
And the other thing is like, it doesn't have to happen. Like, why did you have to do it that way? Why couldn't he just have like figured out that if you hit a certain part of the Trade Federation ship from the outside, you take it down? Like, that's not even difficult. Like, it's not like that would be difficult to explain it that way. Like, it's not. You know what I mean? It's not like they forced themselves into a corner there. Maybe the better question is,
though, what is a 9-year-old kid doing in that battlefield anyway? What were they doing?
How he even gets in the air in the first place?
What were they doing taking him to Naboo? What the hell? Yeah. What the hell? Oh my God, what were you thinking?
Yeah, it's even before that, it's tons of randomness.
They don't call him Qui-Gon Jinn for nothing.
and Liam Neeson's a good actor.
Go home, Qui-Gon, you're drunk. Yeah.
Oh man, it's
and I don't know.
There's so many other ways you could have like made Anakin important, like and made discovering him, if that was the whole point of the film, right? You could have made all of that make a lot more sense in a different movie. Like, it's not, it's very obvious that it could have been done better plot wise. It's not, you know what I mean? They didn't write themselves they wrote themselves into a hole the entire way. It's not like, that's what's so frustrating about it. Is like, they did a good job with the first movies. Why didn't they just do the same thing, like with keeping things fairly simple?
Yeah, but there was one thing that I don't know. I guess one thing that I have liked about the trilogies, and this is kind of where I tend to like episode 3 more than the other two trilogies, because I feel like it does this a little better. But one thing I do like is what this episode gives us in terms of what it reveals to us about like what the galaxy is like with the Jedi in I don't want to say control, but like with the Jedi policing people and stuff like that. And I feel like we get a nice bit of that, like in the very beginning here, where
I kind of want to get deeper into that when we talk about Attack of the Clones, because in Attack of the Clones we learn so much more about the Jedi and how they work.
And in episode 3 as well.
Yeah, but I do think that there's a nice little bit of it here, just at the very beginning of episode 1, where the Viceroy finds out, that the ambassadors are Jedi, and he's kind of immediately assumes that they're there to force a settlement and stuff like that. Kind of nailing home the idea that in the eyes of some people, from a certain point of view, the Jedi...
I see what you did there.
The Jedi weren't necessarily all that different from, like, in certain eyes, they weren't all that different from Darth Vader and the Emperor and stuff like that. We didn't have a word for, we didn't know what the Sith were at this point, but we did have that kind of idea that they were kind of this policing force that were supposed to just be peacekeepers and stuff like that. But for a lot of people, they were feared as kind of these almost hitmen and stuff like that, and kind of like the mob that were there, the brute squad in a way, that were there to like force people to do things. And Qui-Gon, and I think part of it was and like Qui-Gon comments that, they seemed a lot more scared than they should have been in this kind of situation. And obviously, I think a part of that is just because, they had ulterior motives. They were planning to send in an invading force. Darth Sidious was pulling the strings from behind. But I also think a decent amount of that fear was also just because of the Jedi and stuff like that people were kind of nervous around them and stuff like that. So, yeah. No, I don't know. Yeah, that's one little bit thing that I think they kind of... Yeah, that I like about the prequel trilogies, and that I like about this. So,
if there's one thing, and there is only one thing that the prequel trilogy does better. Well, there's two things that the prequel trilogy does better than any of the original trilogy, and that is one, the special effects, because just that's impossible to. It would have been retarded if they couldn't do the special effects better, because technology, hello, but. Really, the actual thing that they do better in the prequel trilogy, and maybe this is just by virtue of it existing, but I do think they do a good job of this, is building the universe and lore and all of that. And I think it's done better in the TV shows, but then also at the same time, I think TV shows lend themselves better to that as well. Yeah. I actually believe that at the end of the day, a good TV series that's guaranteed a certain amount of time is literally a superior medium to telling a story than a film series is. That's just my personal belief. But either way, I do think that all of the prequel trilogy does do a good job of building the lore of Star Wars. And I think I can't hate the prequel trilogy because it does make the original trilogy better, because just knowing what the rest of the universe of, like, what a lot of the galaxy is like in Star Wars and what it was like before and all those things, and it does give you a good sense of like what they're actually fighting for and why it matters in the original trilogy, and it does build up that universe to make it feel bigger, because in fairness, it's one of Star Wars' strengths, that it's so simple, but it doesn't feel like a big Star Wars like the Star Wars universe is not very big. The galaxy doesn't feel like it's all that much. This, because the prequel trilogy, with how much stuff you see and how much they visit, and also especially after watching the TV shows, you feel a lot more of the importance of the rebellion, just because of how much bigger the universe is, just how much more people there is, how many more living beings are in it. And it just makes it feel like a more natural, livable place. Like the touches they make on the people, like I like the Gungans as a concept, at least. Like, it gives you. I like it's an execution.
The idea of an amphibious race.
But the idea of an amphibious race that lives on a planet with humans, and that coexistence thing.
And their struggles to coexist occasionally. Yeah,
that's very interesting. The Gungan technology is really interesting, and they do that very well. Like the Bongo, their bubble cities that they live in, what they fight with, and all that stuff, that's done really well. Like that's all very believable, and it's interesting, and it does endear the movie to you a bit more because it just, I don't know, makes characters more sympathetic because the characters aren't great by themselves, really. So that helps them it just makes the whole place feel more livable. Coruscant is extremely well designed. I love how, like, the planets are done well. Like, Coruscant is really interesting. I want to say that Tatooine is done fairly consistently with Tatooine from before. At least they didn't. You gotta admit, if they really fucked up like Tatooine and made it so like different or weird compared to the first, even though they're I believe they're separate cities. But even so, it still feels.
It's like Mos Espa and Mos Eisley.
Mos Espa, Mos Eisley. There you go. So it is, but it does still feel like.
And they don't. Pod races.
Yeah, and they don't overdo the CGI to the point where it looks like a completely different Tatooine, at least in my opinion. It still feels like the same kind of place overall. So they do a good job with that. And like I said, Coruscant is done very well. The Jedi Temple, all the sets and the locations and all of those ideas, that's all done well, which even though the plot is pretty bad, at least you get, if you watch, you do want to watch this movie, even if you don't like it, because it adds to the Star Wars universe overall.
Yeah.
At least that's what the prequels do, at least. Especially if you watch TV shows afterwards. And then you're like, oh, now I understand the plot line that they were trying to do in the prequel trilogy. Just watch Star Wars The Clone Wars, the TV show. And then you can see Anakin's descent into darkness actually done subtly.
Yep.
Yeah.
And why the Jedi are actually kind of crappy, and why it actually makes sense that they fall. And even why they kind of need to fall. Which is actually great because this next movie is The Last Jedi. If you haven't watched Star Wars The Clone Wars, the TV show, you are not going to get as much out of Episode 8 as those who have watched that TV show. I can guarantee that. I can guarantee that I'm going to be saying I told you so after we watch that film. I can guarantee it. I'd bet $10,000 on it. Because that is a concept, like you said, Robert, even in this film, there is that sense of the Jedi kind of being bullies and kind of being too tied into the Republic, but it's not done as well in the prequel trilogy as it is in the Clone Wars TV show, which is partly why when Anakin says, from my point of view, the Jedi are evil, he sounds like a fucking twat. Whereas when you watch after you watch the Clone Wars TV show, you're like, oh, now I get it. I get it now. It's still a terrible line of dialogue and it's poorly acted, but I do get it now. So
yeah.
But at least overall, that's what the prequel as a whole thing does, which is basically what nostalgia critics like number one point about the prequel, kind of his biggest point about the prequels is that it does add a lot to the universe and the lore of Star Wars, which I think is good. It makes me like Star Wars more. It boosts the original trilogy in that way, I guess is what I can say.
Yeah. And maybe ultimately that's kind of the important thing is, does this make you, do these movies make you enjoy the franchise more, even if you don't like the movies themselves? And which is kind of that struggle that we're having with Ruby right now, is like we're watching things and we're kind of like, this is kind of making me frustrated with the franchise as a whole, but I do agree that like
there's still people defending Oscar, by the way. Somehow I don't understand it. That guy, I used to think he was kind of smart. That David Joshua, nope, that guy's a fucking idiot. He still thinks Oscar's right. Oh, he was defending Oscar's blow up, and I was like, no, you're done. You're on my shit list now, dude. You're an idiot. You are officially a dumbass. Oh man, what an idiot.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry. We can't completely exclude.
We'll talk
Ruby
about that one later. Podcasts. I do think that I do agree that the prequels, even if they themselves are not great movies, but I do agree that they do add something to they do manage to add something to the overall Star Wars universe, and they make me like the Star Wars universe even more. So in that sense, I'd say that they do kind of succeed. So
the way I see it as before, so when I first watched them, I liked episode 1 when I was a little kid because when I saw it, I was born in 1991, came out in 1999, so I was like, 8 years old? I forget exactly when during the year it came out.
It was like
so
March or something like that.
It was
May 1999.
Oh, sorry, it's still May. So I don't know. I don't math that great. I think I was 8 then. And I liked this movie because I was a kid. I didn't know any, and the effects were great. I liked the lightsaber fighting. It was great. Yeah. Pod racing was cool. There was a space battle. There was a lot of action in it, so I liked it. Right?
Yeah.
Then I was older. I watched episodes 2 and 3, and even when I first saw them, I'm like, these aren't very good. Even then, I was like, So I was a little bit more on the side of those old men who thought that the prequels, like to say the prequels don't exist. But then after watching the Clone Wars TV show, I guess the point is, and I some people are going to get sick of me just being such an apologist for the Clone Wars TV show, but
it's good.
Before that show happened, this is how important that show is. Let's be honest. Before that show happened, my opinion on the Star Wars prequels was a 6 out of 10. It just barely made Star Wars as a whole better. Just barely. After that, honestly, it made the prequels, in terms of adding to Star Wars the universe, an 8 or an 8.5. Because even though they're not perfect, it finally explains all the things they were trying to explain in the prequels. One, they explain Anakin and his downfall, right? And they do actually really well on that show, and it retroactively makes episodes 2 and 3 better, and adding so much more lore to the show, and adding to reasons why the Jedi aren't so great and why it makes sense that they fall.
Yeah.
Because that's not really well explained in the films, but it is explained in the show. All of that together, that's everything that the prequels were supposed to do. So with these mediocre movies plus an amazing TV show, all the goals are met of the prequels. So it does increase Star Wars, the enjoyableness of Star Wars as a whole.
Yeah. And that was something that sorry, we got way off track here, media. Sorry about that. But I did.
I mean, you know what? We're not going to go through the plot. Like, it's a shitty plot. Like, we're not going to touch on every little point about it. Like, what are we going to say about Watto? Oh, I'm a Toydarian. My tricks to work on me. Only money. No money. No parts. No deal. And
that was weird. Like, that was weird. Like, I don't know, that they make it about him being a Toydarian. It's like, shouldn't it have just been like, I'm not an idiot and stuff like that. Like, I know what I know what I can use to spend money on it. Like, I'm not weak-minded like you Jedi seem to think I am and stuff like that. But
especially because the Toydarians aren't exactly portrayed like that in the TV show. Like, Watto's not completely consistent with them, so it's a little bit interesting.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's the point. Like, what are we going to talk about with the rest of the plot? Like, it's not good.
But but I do think another thing that the Clone Wars TV show did very well. I talked to my roommate about this earlier today. Is it brought Darth Maul back, which was a very good, because I watched the If Star Wars Episode 1 Was Good by Belated Media, and he talked about
highly recommended.
It's really it's pretty good. I don't know if I agree with like all the changes he suggests, but I do like what he points out about how if he could change anything about Episode 1, he wouldn't have killed off Darth Maul and stuff like that, because he was like, again, another one of the really good parts of this movie. And Ray Park, like, he says so little, but Ray Park kills it. He's a great stuntsman, and their fight was pretty good. It was, I don't know.
Oh, yeah,
I've heard some people argue that like the fight was like a little too long, that it felt like it dragged on a little bit, but it is good just to see like kind of the strategy that he uses, like how he kind of retreats, and I'm guessing he was trying to like lead them to a place where that was more of an advantage to him or something. But yeah.
I would argue, so my point is that I understand the argument of that fight being too long, but my counter argument is if the rest of the film had been better and we gave more of a shit about the characters and the whole entire plot was more relevant, then nobody would have complained, because the actual fight was very interesting and like it was very well done. That's definitely one thing that like the improvements in each like episode of Star Wars on like the fight scenes and everything is done really well. And even though like these characters, like at this point you didn't really give a shit about them, like Ewan McGregor's good, but even at this point I didn't really give that much of a shit about him. He's actually more impressive in 2 and 3 than he is in this one, I will say. Not that he's bad here. He is by far the best part of the prequel trilogies. Like as an individual like performance, he's the best part by far. But at this point you don't really care about him, so that's really the downfall of that fight scene, I would say. But if they did the rest of the movie better, then that fight scene's incredible, and you would care. You wouldn't complain about being too long. I don't think people would. Yeah,
and I will.
It's not even that. It's not even that long though. No. It's just intercut with 3 other.
Something like that.
It's just intercut with 3 other climaxes.
I don't know, but which is another issue that it's like we have. Way too much going on at the end there. We have like 4 different battles, 2 of which did anybody really care about the space battles and the Gungan versus Droid Army battle?
I know, right? Yeah, that's kind of another problem. Again, the whole problem of the plot being confusing, overly complicated, and yet irrelevant all at the same time.
And yet also overstuffed somehow. Yeah. And I will say, and I do agree that, like, I don't know. I feel like with this movie, nobody's performances really stood out as all that good.
No, like that's true. That's again why I don't blame Jake Lloyd.
And one thing that I've heard some people say that I agree with is that throughout the trilogies, you can see Ewan McGregor like kind of growing with Obi-Wan, growing as an actor and becoming good, becoming, the great actor that he now is. But in this movie, you don't really get much opportunity to see that. And Liam Neeson and Natalie Portman, people give Jake Lloyd so much crap. Like, Liam Neeson and Natalie Portman are, Liam Neeson at least was an established actor, a great actor. Mm-hmm. And Natalie Portman was in Leon the Professional and stuff like that, co-starred in Leon the Professional. What excuse did these 2 have for just phoning it in? Is really what it felt like.
Agreed.
And I know a part of that was George Lucas's writing and dialogue, but also just like, oh man, you didn't feel like either of them were trying. And I like Padme and Qui-Gon as concepts and stuff like that. The man who trained Obi-Wan, I think, is interesting. I think Padme as this kind of warrior politician is an interesting concept, but their performances were just awful.
And that's the funny thing is, like, you can blame them for a lot of casting decisions, but those 2 actors in those roles, you would have imagined that they would have delivered great performances in those roles.
Liam Neeson, at least. Natalie Portman can go either way, really.
Yeah.
Just like at the Thor movies.
But she has better. She has had good performances, though. That's the thing. She has had very good performances. That's the point. And this does feel like
she had good performances before this. Yeah.
I don't know. It depends. What are your guys' thoughts on her performance in V for Vendetta? It's better than this, though.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, if she had at least done as well as she did in V for Vendetta, it would have been better. But Liam Neeson is, at the very least, true that he should have been a lot better than he was in this film. So it's like, I can't super blame the casting, at least for those 2, because again, that there's other issues that cause their performances to be pretty lackluster in this film. And I mean, kudos to Liam Neeson for this film not ruining his career, and Natalie Portman for this film not ruining her career.
Yeah, it's a real shame that the only person whose career was ruined by this film was Jake Lloyd. It's like Keira Knightley was in this movie and her career wasn't ruined.
I know. The guy who had the best excuse for turning in a poor performance is the one guy who got his career ruined. At least because Ewan McGregor wasn't as good in this film as he's in the next 2, I think. But he's still good. He's still better than Liam Neeson. He's better than Natalie Portman. He's better than most people. The only person I would argue that he's not better than in this film is the Emperor. Is the guy playing
Ian
Palpatine.
McDiarmid? Yeah,
Ian
but
McDiarmid's
just
still
Ian
like
McDiarmid being amazing.
He's honestly, when I was watching this film, and I'm like watching his conversation with Padme, where he's like trying to he's like manipulating her to like support him to become. You can just honestly, I just feel like in his head he's like, "Geez, come on, guys! Like, liven up a little bit." I'm giving like, cause he's like,
he's like, trying to get good performances out of these people.
He's like, "Come on, Jesus, guys, wake the fuck up! Why are you being so wooden right now?" Like,
and I do
like, he's
and
great.
And so here is the thing, and here was the thing with me is that again, I told you guys that when I saw these movies all out of order, and I knew how things were going to turn out and stuff like that. I was 7 when this movie came out. I was very young when I first saw this movie. This was I had seen the last half. This was the first Star Wars movie that I saw all the way through. I'd seen the last half of Episode 4 before I saw this movie, and but one thing I specifically remember is watching Ian McDiarmid's performance and knowing right away that guy's evil. Like, I figured it.
Yeah.
I didn't even know about the Emperor or the Empire or anything like that at the time, but I knew right away that guy is evil.
Yeah.
So,
and
kudos to him. Kudos for just pulling through and putting in a stellar performance.
You guys have seen the Alex Jones thing, right?
I
posted it on Facebook. No. Alex Jones explains the Star Wars prequels. It's a must watch.
I don't think I have. Sorry, I
posted it on Facebook a while back.
Sorry,
I think I did.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Okay. Can you sum it up? Or sorry,
the Emperor just played the victim. That's how he got into power.
Oh, yeah, pretty much.
But it's I can't actually quote it or get into detail because it's Alex Jones and you gotta hear it from his mouth.
All right.
He's something else.
That's on my to-watch list then.
He's something else.
Yeah. But very much he just really manipulates his way through all of these other characters and manipulates people to get in this seat of power, and it's pretty impressive. So that is, and like you said, that is one of the two important things that happens in this movie is the Emperor, the future Emperor manipulating his way into power and getting and setting things in motion for his event for the Empire to eventually come in.
I mean we've kind of touched on almost all of my points so far.
Yeah, I don't know what.
Completely out of order, but
there's a lot of specifics we can get into, but I don't think it really matters at this point. To be honest.
Yeah. Do we want to talk about pod racing? It seemed like there was maybe a little dissension there. Personally, I liked.
It was fine.
I don't know. It did feel a little out of nowhere, but at the same time, I did think I liked the idea. I liked that it was a new kind of conflict. It wasn't just another, space battle or lightsaber duel or, giant blaster battle. That it was an actual competition but still had that sense of danger of I think it's cool. Some of the behind the scenes stuff that they pulled a lot of it for stuff from NASCAR with this, and this was way cooler than any NASCAR race I've ever seen. So
that's for sure.
It was inspired by Ben-Hur.
And and I also like what it does with Anakin, that better than the space battle, definitely. It lets us know that this is a fast thinking kid with reflex, with Jedi reflexes and stuff like that. It kind of has. I think they were trying to do the same thing with this that they did with Luke blowing up the Death Star in Episode 4 with Qui-Gon telling Luke, Qui-Gon telling Anakin, feel, don't think. Although I think that would have been, I think he should have just said, use the Force, trust your feelings instead of that randomness that we got. But it was a nice thing that it kind of, makes Anakin look like, kind of builds Anakin as this great star pilot that he was introduced as in Episode 4. So I thought that was a nice thing that they did with Anakin there. So yeah. But I do think that, I don't know, maybe it was a little out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's kind of the thing. It's like, I mean, it would have probably been... Pod racing isn't the reason why this movie makes, no sense and it's so irrelevant and all that stuff. If the movie already being the way it was, I think pod racing is a good addition because it's cool and it's the scene itself was
didn't
done
make it
well.
Worse. I don't think it made it
exactly.
Worse.
But I wouldn't have been super pissed if they had figured out a way to make the movie better without including pod racing. It's fine. I wouldn't felt bad, but if it's going to be in there, it is one of those things that adds a dimension to the world of Star Wars. So
yeah, and I also another just random thought here is Qui-Gon has that lot, or they have that conversation in the dinner scene where Qui-Gon's like, "Oh, you must have Jedi reflexes if you race pods." Then he snatches up Jar Jar's tongue out of nowhere right after saying that, and then Anakin says, "You're a Jedi Knight, aren't you?" He's like, "What makes you say that?" It's all and he says it because he saw his lightsaber. It's like. No, it's because he just talked about Jedi reflexes and then showed that he has Jedi reflexes.
Yeah.
That was just I don't know.
It's wait a minute, did the people making this movie not understand their own joke that they did? I'm a little confused.
Yeah, exactly. It's all you guys just made this joke. He just showed him. Yeah, that was... It's
you
so
don't understand what you're doing yourselves?
It's so dumb, it's hilarious.
Yeah. Do you guys not even understand what you just did? Because I feel like you don't. Yeah, it was kind of funny like that. It was interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I don't know what else there is to... I don't know. Was there anything else you want to touch on? I don't have anything more to say. I
kind of want to talk about just this one nitpick that I've always had. This is the one nitpick I always had as a kid. During the Duel of Fates...
Mm-hmm.
When they're running through the doors or whatever, the blast doors that are opening and closing. Why doesn't Obi-Wan use Force Sprint?
Oh yeah, I know. Trust me, I thought about that a million times. Why did he could have made it?
The one thing that always bugged me.
Because it wasn't a thing or something like that. Yeah.
Yep. Doesn't make sense.
Okay, so here is a question that I have for you guys, because this is something I think a part of me thinks I get it, but maybe I don't. So with midi-chlorians, I'm sorry, I know this is the huge taboo, but I wonder about it because I guess a part of me understands that it's, I don't know, Rooster Teeth did a short where they kind of made fun of where at one point they joked about how midi-chlorians were kind of finding out that Santa wasn't real. It's this magical thing that suddenly feels a lot less magical and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it kind of, I don't know, puts science to something that didn't need science and stuff like that. I guess, I don't know, what exactly was it about the midi-chlorians that really shook things up in your guys' opinion?
I think
I didn't really care.
Yeah, I think it's another thing that people kind of put too much emphasis on for really the fact of the matter is that the movie's just the plot is what's so shitty. They probably could have implemented midi-chlorians in a way that would have made more sense if they...
Yeah. They existed before this. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of just runs into the same problem as power levels in Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, it just feels
just unnecessary.
you don't need it.
Okay.
It just didn't need to be in there at all. Why? Why
Fair
bother?
enough.
It's not that big of a deal, but it's just if it doesn't,
it's just another very specific thing, kind of like Jar Jar, that you can grab onto and say, this sucked.
I don't like basically, I think what it is I don't like their George Lucas' thought process that he has to make some sort of tangible explanation for the Force. Whereas he could have just said the Force.
Yeah.
Like you said, this force is strong with him. All of us would have like understood that. We don't need any more explanation than that. It's just him trying to over-explain things, which is kind of what a lot of this movie is.
Yeah,
and I also like what robot. Count?
Yeah.
What's his midi-chlorian count?
Yeah.
I'm trying to bait you. I'm trying to bait you into a meme.
Which meme?
It's over 9,000.
Oh, sorry. But I do think that. But yeah, I guess that's fair. They're just unnecessary, and I like the joke that Robot Chicken makes about them. That it's like the Force. Turns out it's just bacteria inside of you. Look, if you're not gonna take this seriously, I'm out.
Yeah.
But yeah. So yeah, that was just something I don't know. I was wondering about, like if I was missing something, but fair enough. Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't really care. I mean, I agree with the people who hate it, but as a kid, it didn't bother me.
Yeah, I mean, I don't like it either, but it's like it's not that big a deal. I can't say I hate it. It's like, would have been better if they didn't ever think of it.
Yeah,
it's not like it's referenced that much. That's kind of the funny thing about it.
Is it ever referenced again?
That's the thing. I don't even know if it actually is.
I think it's maybe. It's mentioned in episode 3, the Emperor talks about how Darth Plagueis was able to influence the midichlorians to create life.
But I think that's like the last time. Again, he could have just said
only time it's mentioned
manipulate the Force. You could have just said manipulate the Force. You don't have to say midichlorians there. So that's
it didn't. Yeah, the midichlorians were just a really random and unnecessary insert, and I think I already talked about how. I don't know. With the special edition, I was really weirded out by the CGI Yoda and the way his lip flaps just didn't match to the original. So I don't know. That was like all the stuff that I had. All the major thoughts that I had with this. So yeah.
Are there any other like major complaints? Like I know there's a lot of people that cry racism, but what is it racist these days?
I think the biggest problem is that it was just the plot could have it should have been a different movie. Like they should Naboo doesn't matter, nobody cares, all that stuff. Like it should have been something different. My theory
should have been more focused.
My idea would have been
should have been focused more on Obi-Wan. Obi-Wan should have been the one who discovered Anakin, not Qui-Gon.
It should have. Yes, it should have been Obi-Wan discovering Anakin, and I would actually even argue that Anakin should have been a little bit older, even. So then you don't have to. It should have been a different reason. Like he should have already been away from his mom. It should have been something completely different. He should have.
Yeah.
It should have been something along the lines of Obi-Wan actually like going to like where he kind of goes to Kamino and the Clone Wars is starting to happen or something like that, and he kind of runs into Anakin somewhere along those lines, and it's way more relevant to every plot point and that would have been a lot better. Something along those lines. I'm just saying, like something to tie it in better with the Clone Wars, because the concept of the Clone Wars I don't have any problem with. And have Anakin, I don't know, just maybe a little bit further on, it would have been better.
Yeah.
So then he's more, and not make it so random how he met up with how he was discovered.
Yeah, I guess, or I don't know. Do we maybe want to talk about because we kind of talked about how Liam Neeson and Natalie Portman's performances were terrible, but I don't know. What do you guys think of like Qui-Gon and Padme as characters and stuff like that as concepts?
Again, I think never actually like Qui-Gon as a concept because of what Obi-Wan says in the original trilogy. It kind of just felt a little off.
Yeah, I think a big problem is that Obi-Wan changes so much from the version in this film to what he does later. I mean, they even like explain it through like I don't know if it's extended universe lore or not, but for example, I know there's like a thing where he changes his lightsaber fighting style specifically because of how Qui-Gon died, which like I understand it's cool, like the way they're able to explain that. And that's very well done in Star Wars Rebels. Again, another Dave Filoni show where his final meeting with Darth Maul is pretty fucking fantastic. Yeah. But either way, it's kind of that unnecessary thing where it would have been better if Obi-Wan was already like a young Jedi Knight. That would have made a lot more sense. That's always been where Obi-Wan's been his most enjoyable. My favorite Obi-Wan is not the Alec Guinness Obi-Wan, even though Alec Guinness Obi-Wan is good. But my favorite Obi-Wan is Star Wars Episode 3 Obi-Wan and Star Wars: The Clone Wars Obi-Wan. Those Obi-Wans are the best. That's where he is like, and to credit the Alec Guinness performance, that's where you can see from like, you know, what Obi-Wan's potential like was. Like it's very tied in well with Alec Guinness's performance as Obi-Wan as an old man. It's just that Obi-Wan as a younger guy is just cooler than Obi-Wan as an old dude.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's like not to trash Alec Guinness's performance, it's just he set the groundwork for what you would have seen in the past, but I don't know. I think that would have been more enjoyable to see there. And like I said, it would have kept things more focused. Like that's why people say, I think the same thing that other people have said. It's Star Wars Episode 1 is not cut out of the machete order because it's significantly worse than any of the other Star Wars prequels.
It just doesn't feel necessary.
It's just pointless. That's the problem. And that's why, to me, as an individual film, I enjoy watching it more than Episodes 2 and 3 because Episodes 2 and 3 get so much closer to what their goal was and then fuck it up. Like watching Anakin descent is so painful in Episodes 2 and 3 because it's done so poorly, and I know I'm going to rant about it like crazy.
Yeah.
And then, of course, compare it to Star Wars: The Clone Wars more because Star Wars: Clone Wars is better. But so as an individual movie, I enjoy Episode 1 more than Episodes 2 and 3, but it is even more. It's more pointless than those two.
Yeah.
So, kind of the problem.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I don't know. I think again, like this is something that belated media touches on that I think might have worked better. That if Qui-Gon's death had more long-term lasting consequences, something that belated media talks about, like again, if Darth Maul had lived through, you know, this first movie and gone on and have been, you know, one of and kind of been, you know, a major arc villain, basically been what we thought. Well, I'm sure a lot of people thought he was going to be when they first saw the trailers, which is the new Darth Vader. Basically, if Darth Maul had been the new Darth Vader, that, you know, would have been really good, and I think it probably would have added,
as much as
that probably would have made Qui-Gon's death, I guess, more meaningful. But yeah, I guess as he stands here, he's not really the most.
I think another thing that would have made everything better is if, instead of all the extra characters they always seem to have, is if they had Maul or in the same version of the new Star Wars film kind of I proposed, and just don't kill them off, and that way you don't have to have Grievous. Like, Grievous is really not that great. Yeah. He's kind of better in the Star Wars Clone Wars TV show, but even then, I'm not going to defend that show that much and say like Grievous is amazing. Like, Tyrannus is better than Grievous is in that show, and Tyrannus is better in the movies than he is in than Grievous is too. Like, it would have been better to have Maul the whole time and no Grievous, for example.
Yeah, I remember feeling really gypped with what they did with this because, leading up to that, leading up to it, you know, I heard he was this really awesome character, and then in the third movie he gets totally wrecked. But
yeah,
that's a discussion for then. Okay.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
I'm checking the doc.
Sorry, this was really all over the place, but
I mean, what else?
So just like Menace.
It's just like the film, okay? It's a reflection of the movie itself, all right?
Yeah. And that is another thing with this movie. The pacing is awful.
It's really bad.
It's all over the place and just really choppy, yeah.
Especially once you get to Tatooine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that Qui-Gon is in the lead in Tatooine, not Obi-Wan.
You know what's really funny about this movie, and it's kind of an explanation as to how bad it is? I watched the movie, and I thought it was. I looked at like the running time. I was like, "Oh man, that felt way longer than I thought it was." Man, that felt so much longer than I thought it was. Where like I watched when I watched the original trilogies, I was like, man, that didn't feel anywhere nearly as long as it actually was.
Yeah. But yeah, it's just like with Tatooine, the fact that they're all like, there's a big race tomorrow in Boonta Eve, and then it's like a bunch of other crap happens. Like they sign him up. Qui-Gon gets Watto to keep making new bets and stuff like that. They finish the pod. He checks his midi-chlorians count. It's all like, I feel like a day has passed and stuff like that.
Yeah.
It was real. That was all really weird. Yeah.
Not fantastic at all.
Oh man, that was okay.
Not a strong point.
But yeah.
Anakin is Jedi Jesus.
Yeah,
that was so dumb. That's probably the dumbest part of the movie.
Like the whole, like the idea of him being a chosen one and stuff like that.
Well, yeah, the whole idea that he doesn't actually have a father.
Okay.
Oh, that was pretty stupid also.
Too. Okay.
It just happened.
I was gonna say, I don't know. I like the introduction that this movie has to the idea of balancing the Force and stuff like that. I'm not sure if, I don't know. Again, this is because of where I think Episode 8 is going to be going with The Last Jedi, with them ultimately saying no Sith, no more Sith, no more Jedi, where I think all that is going is no more Sith, no more Jedi, just the Force. Those are used in maybe a little bit of policing. And so I think, but I'm not sure if that's where, if that's what George Lucas first had in mind when he brought up the idea of bringing balance to the Force and stuff like that. But yeah.
We'll know in a month.
Sorry?
We'll know in a month.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
the hype.
Well, even though we might not know how much of it was George Lucas's plan. But yeah, I do. But yeah, the idea of bringing balance to the Force and the fact that he kind of does. He brings the Sith back and stuff like that, and then destroys the Sith. But I don't know. It's
2 Jedi, 2 Sith. Sounds pretty balanced to me.
Something like that. Although I guess if I don't know. But yeah, so I thought it was cool that they introduced that concept. So yeah. But yeah, the idea of being conceived by the midi-chlorians is wonky.
Yeah. But again, we already kind of
the main problem with this movie that I have is that Obi-Wan doesn't get enough screen time with Anakin.
Yeah.
They almost never interact in this movie.
And that's a big problem with all of the prequels, is that they don't do a lot to establish their relationship between these
That's
two.
why it should have happened earlier, or it should have happened later, and it should have been Obi-Wan meeting Anakin. No Qui-Gon whatsoever. He could have been referenced at some point, but he doesn't need to exist.
Yeah.
If I had to make just one change to this movie, Obi-Wan would have went out into the city, and Qui-Gon would have stayed on the ship during the whole Tatooine segment. If I had to just make one alteration, that would be
Obi-Wan would have found Anakin, yeah, that was, like I said, like Ewan McGregor's performance, you can't really judge him on it because he really didn't have much time to give one.
Much. Yeah.
He didn't have much time to give one. So
at least when he does act in the other two movies, he's the only thing that makes me not want to shoot myself in the face. So besides the fight scenes themselves, but he's in most of those, so.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I'm out of stuff to say.
Yeah, this movie, I want to talk about a little bit of the impact.
Okay.
Kind of started the whole green screen craze, for better or worse. Made lots of money at the box office. It was the most successful movie that year.
Mm-hmm.
Got a lot of whiplash later on down the road, and this is not going as long as I thought it might be, but I think it's because we're mostly in agreement, more so than I thought we would be. But But yeah, I mean, if you want to listen to an hour and a half of people bashing the prequels, watch Red Letter Media, watch Belated Media, watch Unusual Suspect, even though he's very positive on the prequels. But yeah, watch them. Yeah. I highly recommend their videos, especially in regards to Phantom Menace. Final verdicts?
I can start us off, I guess.
Sure.
It's not great. It's kind of like what you said, dude. It's as far as expanding like the overall storyline of as far as like the overall storyline of the prequels, this movie has very little to offer, and technically it's okay. I think it holds up okay. But as far as but it does do one thing well, and that is it builds on the lore of Star Wars for better or worse. I think in a lot of way, in certain places, a little better. And it kind of expands on the universe and does a nice little bit of universe building, which I think is nice. So, and I still prefer this movie over Attack of the Clones. So, yeah, and it's been a while since I've seen episode 3, so jury's out on that one.
Yeah, I think it's easier to classify everything as a whole once I see all the rest of them, to be honest. For me, like with Robert, as an individual film, I still enjoy watching this one more than episodes 2 and 3. I really do, because it's at least fun for what it is, and I enjoy pod racing, and I because 2 and 3 get so much closer to like being relevant and doing the right thing. The fact that they're so fucked up in what like they fail so miserably in actually portraying Anakin and his like journey. They do such a poor job of it that they are way more painful to watch for me. Even though 3 is technically a better film, I still think it's actually shit because of how much they fucked up the entire point. The entire 2 points of the films is to show why the Jedi actually there's a reason why the Jedi fall, which they clearly do not do at all. They don't show how the Jedi are really unprepared, and they don't show how the Jedi are overconfident, really. They don't really show how the Jedi kind of deserved it also. They don't do any of those things well in episodes 2 and 3, in my opinion. The TV show does it, though. And they do an even worse job of showing Anakin's descent into darkness. Because in 3, he's already there. It's like he's just a whiny sack of shit the whole time. And it's not just hate, but this film is not. So this film doesn't have that pain in it, like that annoying bullshit in it. So I'm not 100% because I haven't watched those 2 recently, so I'm not going to give a number out of 10 yet, because I think it kind of banks on what I think of those 2 when I watch them this time. But as an individual film, it's my 4th of the original 6 Star Wars films. It's in 4th place. But I think episode 2 being in 6th place as of right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's passable. The most important thing a movie needs to be is entertaining. And it's entertaining. It's dumb fun. Like, as bad as it is, it's still better than Transformers, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Batman v Superman, Suicide Squad, Thor: The Dark
100%.
World,
yeah, 100%, 100%.
The Matrix sequels.
Yep.
The Island. The Mummy movies. Godzilla.
Most of the Fast and the Furious. Actually,
most of the Fast and Furious movies.
Scratch that. All of the Fast and the Furious movies. I actually don't think any of them are good, and I love car stuff. Actually, they're all pretty shitty, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah.
It's not a bad movie. It's just a bad Star Wars movie.
Yeah.
But at least he rolled the dice, and so I give it a 6 out of 10.
That's my thought originally, would be 6, but I'm gonna hold. But I just, because you chose the exact number I would have chosen, That was going to be my number.
Yeah, it's a 6 out of 10 for me.
And it's not a movie reviewer 6 out of 10, okay? Because, like, you know, it's not a Metacritic 6 out of 10. Like, my 6 out of 10 is not terrible.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I'd watch it again. If it's a 6 out of 10, I'll watch it again.
Yeah, if you make me care, you're at least going to get a 5.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand how, like, nowadays, like, a 7 is, like, absolute garbage these days. Doesn't make sense to me.
Because of the corruption within news media.
No.
Especially with video games.
Yeah, video games actually are. That is the one place where video games are actually things, unlike all the places where media thinks that video games are ruining things.
Yeah. It's like I mean, to go on a little rant here, and I kind of went on a rant about this in my most recent stream, but let's take The Last of Us, for example. Last of Us, it's a fine game. That gets a bunch of 10 out of 10s. People who aren't into video games are going to think that's the pinnacle of video games. Then they play like, this is just a mediocre episode of The Walking Dead. This is it? This is as good as video games get? Okay, whatever. It kills the medium that way. But, luckily movies have kind of a gold standard with like Star Wars, Wizard of Oz, Citizen Kane. They have a much higher standard that gets followed.
That's why the only 2 games I play these days are Watch, which is also technically overrated, I'll admit that, and Super Smash Bros. Melee.
Yeah.
It's hard to like figure out, like, I don't know. That's a whole different conversation.
Yeah, so wrapping up. If you like this video, like, comment, and subscribe. I have videos every week, multiple videos a week, at least 2 podcasts, a Ruby review. Every once in a while, stream or another video. My writing stuff is a little bit on hold for right now. I'm gonna crack down on it over Thanksgiving break this week or this next week. But yeah. Other than that, I got nothing to plug.
I have nothing to plug whatsoever right now.
Nothing here.
You can also join us on our Facebook group, Ruby and Beyond. Links will be in the description. So yeah. Until next time when we talk about Attack of the Clones. Thanks for watching.
No, looking forward to that. Oh man, I'm gonna have to watch it.
I really need to rewatch it. I'll probably do that tonight.
I don't know when I'm gonna be able to force myself to watch that thing.
Yeah. Anyway, good night, guys.